voluntary positive response. We got that situated. We got a motion to start drafting language for ticket length, and then we had a motion to amend language for requiring the white paint. We don't have anything for survey, so I just wanted to double check that real quick. My memory wasn't serving me perfectly. So we've got, so what I've got on my last note for the design locate parameters is that I presented language. Josh will be looking through the rest of the rules and refining verbiage. Kevin wanted numbers, and then I was able to provide that, what we had. Kevin mentioned he's going to look in the CJ best practices for ideas. Those are the notes that I have from our last discussion on design locate parameters. I know everyone's been busy. But basically, the program is working real well. And let me just mention, I've got quite a few tickets that were called in as 2 business day tickets. They should have been called in as surveys, but this particular entity, says they're going to drive ground rods and this and that. And then on some, in some cases they might, but most of the time we're not seeing that. We're seeing very delayed responses to getting out to actually survey the work and it being called in again as a 2 business day ticket. So we're never going to get around that when we're trying to amend our process here. I think the objective with this is to give those engineering departments or those engineering firms, opportunity to gather that information prior to needing the marks, because there's essentially 3 stages in that process, and when it gets to the civil stage, yeah, you're going to need the marks. I make phone calls on a lot of tickets myself, along with a lot of my employees that, they ask you, do you need the maps only? Yes, we do. Okay, well, if you only need maps only, then we don't need marks for the survey. So we're going to go ahead and try to do the best we can at getting that to you. So whether operators use their designated agent as the liaison to provide that with this or not is really kind of irrelevant. We're just putting a process in place that connects, that has them getting that information and connects them with operators or their contractor before asking for marks. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Brings us up to speed there. So if I get bring that up again. There's a PDF on the process that Greg had provided us with, and we actually had gone over this process as a board. If you remember, it was presented. Scott, were you there when that was? Or I think you were. I think you were in the beginning stages when we scheduled those dates. There was 2 things that we covered. It was the ticket extension, and then I believe the other was the design locate or the LO. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I was here. I was with Greg when he presented those, I believe.
Yeah. The DIR, the DLR presentation. So the board did get to take a quick look at it, and I think from the majority of it, everybody liked the idea. I don't think it's a matter of liking the idea as much as knowing, oh, okay, so we have an option that allows them to get that information before it turns into locates. And I can't speak on this enough right now. I have these conversations with excavators a lot, and I don't think that they understand the dynamics that surround locates, what's expected of the operators. We're a contractor, of course, for particular operators here in Oregon, and I kind of explain it to excavators that are calling these tickets in over and over and over, and they're calling them and just blanket calling them. They're calling them in, not as they've already started the project, but now since they're past this, they're just calling the whole thing again and again. It's like, well, just call me and I'll let you know where I need it. Well, no, we need you to pinpoint where it's at, because you're missing the point of the time it takes us to do that. Okay. Well, anybody can say, well, it's going to take time to do this. Now, this is what I try to explain to them, is that they have a number amount of resources that they have limited. Well, recently, a lot of companies have limited amount of resources. So, but whether you do or you don't is irrelevant to the fact that you can only take on what you can take on. It is within our purview as a call center and as a committee here to look at the public safety and damage to utilities, the potential damage to utilities when tickets are going past due that can't be done. So what I explained to them is that you get to turn down jobs. You get the choice on whether or not you bid those jobs. We don't as operators. We're at the whim of whatever ticket is called in at whatever time it's called in, and we have 2 business days to do it. We don't have the luxury of saying, okay, I can't do that work. We just don't, you know, maybe go with this guy. I know this guy, he does great work. You can do that. You know, we don't have that option. There's nothing to regulate how many tickets are coming in. And so, you know, I think in the next few years, I think we will probably be looking at this a little bit more. But I just wanted to bring it to light here in the committee is that that's a major problem for the integrity of our facilities, and then of course the excavators digging around those facilities when there's no marks. So, you know, the whole point of looking to a ticket length or looking to make sure that white paint's there is to minimize the time that you know, we have out there to mark. We don't have much time as it is, and the limited resources is always a factor. So it's even more so now than before. So I'll step off my soapbox, but I just wanted to let everyone know in committee that's the reality of the situation. We don't have an option. We have to mark it. Northwest Natural Gas has to mark every ticket that comes in. You know, Pacific Power and Light, they have to mark it. City of Philomath, they have to mark every single ticket that's coming in. But we're talking, you know, when you look at it, you're talking about the bigger entities that cover a lot of the state, and that is your PGE tickets. That is your Northwest Natural tickets, the Pacific Power and Light, and forgive me if I'm, you know, Lane County and then a lot of others. So, but that's kind of my statement with that. I think it's something we need to keep in mind when we look at things, vet things, and make decisions here in committee. So with that said, I don't have the particular PDF to pull up, but I think we might need to circle back on that. This is our primary focus. If we do have any updates, you know, through our agenda today, we'll get to that point, but I don't expect to spend a lot of time there. It's just, do we have any updates? No, we'll move on from that. So I guess my question to everyone is that the time that we have today is primarily slotted to spend on or blocked out to spend on the design locate request. Is there any questions to start out with this new process? It's a process that Washington uses. Is there any questions with this process that we're leaning towards? Okay. Okay, so I'm not hearing any. So what I would like, in the sake for the time today that I know everybody has, and I appreciate everyone's time, what I'd like to do is I'd like to get with Scott and Josh, and if the committee is in favor of it, I'd like to go to work on this as far as the DIR and the DLR process. If we decide to go with that process in itself, as a whole, there's going to be a few things that we might want to change. We can bring that back, or we can piece through it today, and we can look through the PDF. And but I wasn't prepared for that, and no one has that as a deliverable. I mean, we can get it sent out to everyone, but I think it'd be great to have some red line and some notes on a shorter version of it. I know that PDF is pretty long of the process. So maybe we can get it shortened up. Scott, have somebody shorten it up for us. Maybe we'll get Josh to work on some of the, and myself work on some of the things there and run it by other committee members. Maybe as a joint document. But yeah, I think that's the first step. I think the second part of it is once we have a system with that, then we look into our rules and how it's going to affect the rules, how we need to change you know, 70, is it 70 or 90?
That was 80.
Is it 80? Okay. So, okay. So either that, you know, we're going to have to definitely change that one, but how it affects others and where it might show up in other rules, which I don't think it does. I think it's really just there. Our definition possibly. But if we're not if no one's in opposition to that, because I'd love to hear any argument to it. We're seeing a large number, and I think the data that we had before that I'd sent to Kevin, you know, shows how many how much is called in an organ, and how much of our tickets that are generated come from that part of the industry, that you know, design and survey part versus what we saw for Washington. It's even more so needed here when you look at those numbers. It was almost night and day compared to what Washington was calling in versus what we were calling in for that prior year. So yeah, that would be the second part. Is anybody else thinking anything as far as the logistics of getting to an end product here on this? Okay. If you're speaking, you're on mute because I don't hear anything. But I take it we're all in agreement. I think we've come to a point that we're here for a reason.
Micah, do you have that PDF? Do you need me to
I
resend it?
do.
Okay.
I do. Let me see. Scott, you might have to speak up.
Sorry, I just want to make sure you have it in case you need me to send it again. But if you have it, you're good.
I believe so. Yeah, I just don't have it right in this folder here. It's a pretty extensive PDF that breaks everything down. I think it's like 20 pages or so.
Yeah, I think it's 33. Most of it, it's a step-by-step on how to do it for the state of Washington. So, and I remember when Greg went through it, he kind of zipped through most of it because it is just a very high-level login here. Click on this, click on that, step-by-step process of how it works. So,
yeah, I've got it, and then I've got if anyone want to see any numbers, I've got that here too. I also have our verbiage, our original verbiage, and then the verbiage that I kind of, but I felt that was premature. I think we probably want to dive into this, and if it needs to cater to certain rules, we need to factor that in, and then we'll move into the rule making process. You know, changing any rules anyway. So once we get out of this committee, I'll take a quick look at that, Scott, and we'll probably be looking at more maybe January or February before we get to actually the meat of it. But I'll get with you guys on that. If anyone else wants to be you know, part of that email chain, I can add you. So just please let us know. Yeah, I think it's just 80, Kevin. And anyone else that, yeah, I think that's all it is. I don't see it.
And Melanie.
Oh, hey, Melanie.
Can you hear me?
Your blinker's on.
Okay. I know, right? Yes, and Melanie too.
The meeting's over, Melanie. We're on the tail end of it.
It's not. I've listened to the entire thing, except for maybe the first 5 minutes.
All right. So do we have anything else for that? I think it's a good approach. I don't know. You know, I'm not hearing anything, so we'll go ahead and move forward. I'll get some of my thoughts put on that PDF, and then some of Josh's, what Josh thinks, and we'll get something to present at our next OAR meeting. That way we have something to look over and kind of pick apart. So I think it's probably the best bet so far. So,
Mike, I did drop the link to the manual in the chat.
Okay. Excellent. So Updates as far as, let's see, we don't have any updates as far as the length of a ticket. We haven't seen anything that could give us anything there. Or the white paint for now. I think we're gonna have to wait on all that. As far as the paint remediation, Josh, continue to give us updates on that bill and where it sits, and we could, you know, it isn't in our purview, but they did identify us in the bill. So like we said, once it dies and it's dead, then we can probably remove that, unless the committee feels that, you know, there should be a responsibility, and we can possibly look at it in a different light, in terms of, are we responsible as a board to put responsibility on who removes the paint? I don't know there. So.
Yeah, there's nothing active at this point. We're heading into a short session, so I don't anticipate, but we'll be monitoring.
Okay. All right.
This is Micah. This is Michelle.
Sure.
So this is one that I drove up to Salem to talk about 3 years ago. Is this the white paint to make it mandatory that they use white paint when they request a locate?
That's correct.
And it takes over 3 years to, I mean, I know with COVID and all that, but it seems like there's over 50% of the states that are already doing it. What is the big holdup that we can't implement that?
I think it's really, I'm not going to be able to answer that to you know, honestly. It's really a committee fill. I think there are those that are passionate about it. Every stakeholder is going to have their opinion regarding it, and I think more or less we wanted to see if this virtual aspect of the new NXT is going to help us, and if it's not, then I think, you know, we move towards drafting some language. We do have a resolution. We do have a motion to move forward with language on it. The board is in agreement with the white paint, the necessary need for it. So I don't know where we're going to go with it. Maybe it's to excavators only, and homeowners leave it away from the homeowners. I'm not sure, but I think that's going to be hard to write in rule that homeowners aren't responsible for marking them white and excavators are. So.
Okay, and then length of ticket, that was the other one I'm pretty passionate about too. It's just sort of in a holding pattern.
It's the same. I think once this technology, if we're where are we at now? I think when we first started, we were at 7%. We didn't expect the jump that we had last month, or this month actually at our board meeting. We were at 25% on users for NXT. Do we have an updated number, Scott, on that?
What's the question specifically?
I think it was 27%. Well, the question,
NXT.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was over 27% at the end of October. I don't have a number updated beyond that.
Okay, so our hope there, Michelle, is that once everyone starts to get on board with the NXT using that system, where they're able to start pinpointing their areas rather than blanket calling the tickets, that some of that will be reduced. I think we're really going to know once we start seeing that percentage of users get to about 75, 80%. Once we're in that range, I think we're going to start seeing some of the results. I don't know how we quantify that. And when we look at data, maybe Scott can help us with that on what they get, but I think it's going to be a little bit of that and then a fill. I think from my end of it, and of course your end of it, and anyone else that's responsible for overseeing locates. But that was what the committee's decision was, is to, but we do have motions for both of them for verbiage. We just want to see what this NXT is going to do for us so that we can cater what our rule is going to be around that. So.
Okay, and then just because you already sort of mentioned it, but we had our KUCC meeting this week, and nobody's aware of the update, the new change in the technology. There was one out of the whole group. So I'm just curious, has that just not been advertised? Or are we sort of still in a testing mode? Sorry, and I might be out of line here. I just, I got to type up my minutes, and I wanted to respond to let the people that participated sorry, Josh, were able to jump in. We had technical problems. We couldn't take in phone calls. So anyways, just curious because, you know, I've been trying to explain to them some of the positives that we're going to be seeing, but nobody's really aware of it. And I just wondered what the advertising is going to be or how we're rolling that out.
I
can
think
speak
a
to that a
number
little
of
bit
individuals. Go ahead.
if you want. We've messaged out to all of our members, all of the excavators that have called and locate tickets over the last several months for the year, essentially. We've reached out to all of them with some promotional information that the changes happened, that they need to update their browsers. I mean, essentially, if they go to that website, they're going to be redirected to the new system. So it's already there. If anyone's using the old system, they just need to update their browser, and it would bring them to the new system, where they can still use the original, what they're used to using if they just go to the legacy application button. But
Do you have
the new
something you could
systems
send
are-
me? Because I mean, we're talking, there were 14 people there and only one knew about it. So I'm thinking there's something missing here. So I would like to share with the local group what they're supposed to do. If there's anything that you've been sending out that I could send to them.
Absolutely. And then
Okay.
also, if you go to the OUNC website, there's a link, I believe, to try ITIC, for Oregon, and you can go in there and they can use the tool, they can play with it. There's 11 different videos that talk them through different aspects. They're all short videos.
Okay. All right, I'll send them out that too then, but I just found it interesting. So I just thought we were still waiting to roll it out. So thank you.
Yeah, it's I think August 29th it went out, but it's just or.tryitic.com, and it'll take them to a specific, and looks like Josh put it in the chat there.
Thanks, Josh.
So if you just point people to that.
Okay.
That's the best place to get in play. But yeah, it's really what we found. And it's kind of a weird thing is if they update their browser with just the the address, it'll take them to the new one. So a lot of their old addresses are pushing it to it. So
okay, thank you.
And there's a few things that the board spoke about in our last meeting that hopefully we can integrate into some of our current training.
We do, Micah. So the safety 101 is going to get updated. It's the video that we have on the website. We did have a training this week. Didn't have a lot of attendance. We send all this out through Kitty actually sent it all the way to, every Facebook and everything we could do. And there will be more training on this one. But Scott had a good point about there's 11 videos on our website and they can go there. I spoke with all my contractors, excavators, and most of them, this is just an update, and most of them, they were aware of the update.
So thanks, Mitch. Yeah, no, absolutely. There's things that we're doing as a board where we're aware of it. We've definitely approached it, and I think we've got a good handle on where we want to go with it. But I think the bigger question is that if they're not aware of it existing, then how can we reach them? I mean, I guess that's a question for every local UCC that when they're saying I don't get this or I don't, what's the best way to get to them? And I think that's really going to help the board out quite a bit in our outreach efforts. How do we get to them? And is it email? Do they use email? What is it? And that's going to help us. Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm hearing some of the same sentiments about, we have a new system, and they're aware of it, but we haven't really seen anything by the OUNC on the banner of what features we want people to use out of this, and to the point of white lining, virtual white lining. Yes, there's a video about the new system, but what is it that we want to banner about this new system, and should it be front and center as a complement to the videos that help them use the product in the way that is going to be an advantage for us all. So there is some outreach that could be done, and I don't have I don't have all the features that I think would be useful to share, because I'm not that familiar with it, but I definitely see like a one pager or a PDF of you know, hey, this is the new things that this system can provide. We get that out there and have a link to it. That's going to be the useful link on how to get some information to people in the hands that people that need to use it the way that we intend for our benefit. That's all.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Kevin. I think the bigger issue that we've had is that the link is, they're still working on that, Scott. You know, correct me if I'm wrong here, but generally when they go to submit a ticket, it should take them, and they should be, you know, it should be a different look and feel because NXT does have a different look and feel. So they should look at it and go, oh wow, so something's different, and then maybe try to explore it a little bit, and then the options might change. But I think the link that we have for everyone that's either bookmarked it or whatever takes them to the old submittal, so the old way. And I don't know, you know, where we're at on that, if we've got that fixed. I think, you know, the education on how to use it is not as cumbersome as someone might think. I think there are particular options that, you know, that they're going to have that they didn't have before, and I don't think that's too tough. I think we look at it from how do we get it out there, buddy? How do they know? And I think that's our biggest issue right now, is that some are going to the old, and then, you know, some that know are going to the new.
So Micah, this is Michelle again, but I'm not disputing or anything, but first of all, like as a KUCC president, it would have been nice to get it directly sent to me, and not inside the minutes, but just as a separate email that says, so we can advertise to our forums when we are having our meetings, or we can send it out in an email. The other thing I'll highly dispute, because I see it every day, there's so much change going on these days, and it happens. We're continually updating technology. Change is not what everybody accepts real well, and you've got to make it pretty user friendly. They're not going to take the time to say, oh, okay, I see something new, it's different. They're going to go click on that old link, and they're going to go back to the old system, because unless you make it very, my approach is always what I call kindergarten level. If you know how to do it, great. If you don't, then you go up to this step, this step. I can totally appreciate that sometimes the best people that created the programs and gathered the information and tested it are not the best teachers, because it's the teachers, the end user, that we're supposed to be catering to, not those that have been using it. We've got a wave of green people. If we see where a lot of these individuals are going to start losing their jobs, choosing to leave the industry, and then they might come back, we're going to see a big wave of change of employee status, the ages of our people, those that have been wonderful, experienced individuals that have been around the industry for years, they're all departing our industry. And so we got to step back and punt from the area of, you're new, how do we get you here? And we got to make it user friendly for them, not to say that, you know, they just got to look around and they'll find it. I'm sorry, you've wasted your money if that's how we're going to approach it. So not to be straightforward here, but that's truly how I see it, from being more of the end user or supporting the end users here. And I just think, just like Kevin was saying, we need to really be getting something out there that's simple, a link that works. Don't throw stuff out there that has not been tested. Believe me, that's the next thing you can do to curtail people really fast. And so anyway, I just feel there's two sides to this, maybe, that we're seeing things a little differently.
Yeah, no,
Michelle, I support you 100%. I also feel like this would be a great opportunity for us to make sure that the new people coming into the industry, or the old as well, to have a recap of our laws. So I think this is a great opportunity for training. I've been trying to push this for a while, and I feel like we need to get it out there. Like you said, people are not going to go there and use it. It took me probably about a month or two to actually get in there and play in that sandbox and figure out what this was all about. And I've known about it So I know that the people that are not sitting on their computer every day, that don't have the access like I do, are not doing this. They are getting their work done for the day, and they're taking the easiest route they know. They don't want to learn the new technology right now, because right now everyone is scrambling. So I agree with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. Is there anyone in the committee that submits tickets on a daily basis? Okay, so those that do, you know, it'd be nice to have that voice that does, and to kind of find out how they, you know, everyone's different, like Michelle's saying, you know, but at the same time, maybe hear it from them. I don't submit them, so I don't. I just, I'm the recipient of it, so I'm not one that used the old system regularly, had it bookmarked, was used to it in you know, on the iTick app. So it'd be nice to hear their perspective on it. Because this is the one thing that you know, they like to shy away from in committees, and it's a waste of, I believe it's a waste of our time to talk around the thing when in reality it's, you know, I don't think this is a very difficult thing to get. I think once we get, in my opinion, once we get to a 50% or 60% on this, then we go full on switch over, and they're not going back to the old. So they don't have an option on whether or not, you know, they're going back to the old. You know, when I went on there and I looked at it, you know, I started going through it, and I've submitted tickets in the past, and it wasn't anything super special. It just gave options that weren't there before with the Polygon, and so I think we got to look at it that way. We got to take it for what it is. I think that's what Scott and Frank have been trying to say, you know, in committee and in board meetings, is that, you know, look at it, take a look at it, play around with it, and see, you know, really how much we want to exhaust and what effort we want to exhaust on this. But I'm not taking away from what you're saying, Michelle or Melanie. You guys know that, you know, or Melanie knows that I'm with her on that. We do need to put something together. I think integrating into some of our trainings is good, but having that flyer that can go out, I don't know, you know, if it is as simple as I'm saying it is, then maybe we can just get those few things on there. We've had a few flyers that's gone out, and they've done pretty well. Our pocket guide's pretty well sought after. Something like that we can get out to all the local UCCs, so they can take it with them and share it with everyone else that they see. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. I do.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity for this group to provide some input on, you know, the areas that we are very sensitive about: white paint, virtual white lining, size of locates. How is it that you want the new user to use this product? We have that stage right now, and are we using it? I would say effectively no. If Michelle is unsure about, you know, what the benefits are, but, you know, virtual white lining is a game changer. And are we highlighting that right now and making a banner for our benefit? We're just not doing it.
Right. From that perspective, Kevin, yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. We could be doing something there. We don't have to have that in rule to say, hey, look, here's an option for virtual white lining, and definitely maybe that's a way to approach it at first, and then, you know, get that in place, get that on a flyer, get it out to everybody, and then see how that's going to fare in terms of us making a decision on putting in a rule as a mandatory. I think that's a good point, Kevin. So, where do we go with that, Mitch? Kitty?
For starters, I apologize, Michelle. I tried to join your KBCC meeting again, and it would not let me in. I waited a long time, and it just would not let me in. I would have been glad to provide some updates. And I think I did mention at the last meeting that I attended that this was happening, but I think just to take a step back, when this was rolling out, we were told this was more evolutionary than revolutionary. This is not a new system. It's a rebuild of an existing system. That's why it's still called iTick. So it's an improvement over what was already in place. Multiple states had adopted it, so it was well tested before we brought it on. and we were pretty late in the system. I think there were at least 6 or 7 states that were either adopted or in the process. And Scott, you can correct me on that. And the feedback we got from those other states is that not only was it more intuitive to the user, it was a welcome change. It gave them functionality they didn't have before. It streamlined the process. I talked to executive directors like Don in Washington, and he said he had done some one-on-one hand-holding, but in large part it was with folks that hadn't viewed the videos that were on his website, like the ones that are on our website. And so there wasn't, in those other states where it had rolled out, strong demand for specialized training, or starting getting some weird feedback here. I don't know what that is, but so we do have it on our website. We have talked about integrating it into our existing excavator and locator trainings. We've also talked about integrating it into our online videos and training. And then looking at even standalone, we've budgeted $10,000 for next year's budget for ITIC NXT training specifically. And I'd be glad to send a write-up today to you, Michelle, so you've got that on hand for your numbers. And it's got me thinking of what else we could work with OCC on. I know since it has rolled out in multiple other states, they've got to have some resources in addition to what we're already using from them. So we could work together on that and get either that handout or other write-ups available for your newsletters or updates for your members.
Thanks, Josh.
Sure.
I also, you know, the piece about, you know, being a president of a UCC, I think we're kind of in limbo right now on our, you know, OUCC representative on the board. I believe that's their responsibility to let their presidents know of changes and things that need to be, you know, that they feel they should, or that the board or that they would feel they need to be briefed on. I think that's their responsibility. I'm not pointing any fingers on anyone here. I'm just saying that I think that's the way it's been in the past. Scott, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, once we get Kyle's there. Kyle is at our meetings. I don't know, has he been voted in as, he's the vice chair currently, correct, of OUCC?
Yeah, he's the vice president, and I am the president, and I've been at every OUCC meeting and at every OUNC meeting except for one. And we absolutely did release this information at the OUCC meetings, which have been, you know, rather poorly attended. But we do try to get that information out to all the OUCCs. This is definitely not something that we've not shared, both again as the president of OUCC and as a OUCC representative. This is something that we've had through. How many demos did we have with the OUNC? 3 different demos that we provided for the OUNC. We've done training with the OUCC, and I think we have training at this upcoming OUCC meeting. So hopefully, Michelle, you can make it to that meeting in December. And so we'll have a NXT training there as well. So yeah, we're definitely trying to do the best we can get the word out at the OUCC level and from OCC. Like I said, I'm trying to get the verbiage that's been sent out so I can share that with the group right now. But we've made several different communications out, as well as the OUNC has through Facebook and other media sources.
And just to let you know, I don't do Facebook. So, you know, I'm one of those, just FYI. So, I mean, we can't rely on that either. So, and most of the people here don't, but anyway, just, you know, just looking for continuity and value to get back for all the time and effort you spent in putting to the program, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, when we're missing on those fronts, you know, you know, we can look in different directions on why. But ultimately, the OUCC, it's their responsibility to let, you know, the local councils and everything know, you know, things that they should be knowing that the board's making decisions on. So I would point you in that direction. But
so just for clarification, because I've been doing this now for 4 years, who's supposed to be communicating to me? Because I can honestly say, I mean, outside of Kitty and the minutes and when I do join, I don't get communication that I'm aware of unless I'm missing something. So where's that coming from? I mean, Kitty, what's the expectation?
Kitty provides the minutes for the OUCC.
Right. Right. But I
Um,
mean, that's that's the communication tool. It's not talking with anybody or anything else. It's only in the minutes is what our our conduit, I guess, of communication is.
is Ryan Kirschner in your area?
No,
Okay,
I
well,
don't.
he's the zone director down there.
I've never heard the name. Sorry.
Okay. Um, uh, I mean, the big
Okay.
thing to get to be in attendance at those state meetings is the best way to get that information. But otherwise, yeah, the greatest avenue the OUCC has is the minutes that we send out from those meetings.
Yeah, I think, you know, and you're going to capture quite a bit in those meeting minutes too. I don't. I think that's something that maybe you guys can talk about. We're two different agencies here, but the OUCC does have a seat on the board to be briefed on things that the board, you know, the decisions the board's making, and then take that back to the state, you know, council, and then of course, like Scott's saying, those minutes go out. But I think that's maybe something that can be refined, or if it needs to be, or discussed, you know, at the next.
What something I would like to see is a flow chart. I asked this for Jeff Daniels years ago. I would really like to see somebody, and I believe Kevin and I had this conversation too when I was down here for our audit 2 years ago. But you know, for those of us that we see the acronym, we don't understand the dynamics. How does that all work together? It's you guys have all been pretty much seconded into this environment for a long time. And again, I'm coming from a kindergarten level. I don't know all, it's like when you use an acronym the first time, you're supposed to spell it out type thing. It would just be really nice to sort of understand how this all flows. And like when we have the request to ask for white paint to be used by all people requiring locates, how does that flow through the system? To what groups does it flow? How does it get stuck for 3 years, and why does it not proceed? Or like who's in charge of that? It would just, for me, I'm a visual person. I like to sort of know, I know your names, I know where you work. I don't always understand, mine is probably Kevin and Josh, really, their piece of the pie, if you will. And maybe I'm just out there and not catching on like the majority of everyone, but you know, we're just like everywhere else, membership is really going down, whether you're in Shriners or whatever organization, and including, the utility notification center. We gotta keep people educated, engaged, but we also have to understand what we're joining, what are the effects it's going to take, and what value can we bring to the table, and so I feel like I'm still, I try to be involved, but I don't know where I'm supposed to be getting this information. And maybe I'm just a one-off. I don't know, but I've always sort of considered myself slightly smart. But this whole dynamic to me is just very gray. And so I would just like to see something so that maybe when I come to these meetings, I'm not being obnoxious, because that's not my point. I'm just trying to understand what I can pass back to my local people here in Klamath County. That's all.
All right. Thanks, Michelle. All right. So we can continue to go on and talk about that. I don't think this is the forum to continue to do that. I think just my last statement on it is simply that we work for a living. I mean, elsewhere, this isn't a job, and I think that's one of the reasons why Josh is being brought on, and so he can bring some of that continuity to everything. As he starts to get tenure here, he'll start identifying these things and making the process better. I think that's the reason why we brought him on, the big reason why we brought him on, and we're glad he's here, and hopefully we can look forward to some changes there. So.
Yeah, I'm glad to create some kind of a newsletter or bulletin that I can work with Kitty on to get you updates on a regular basis, because I'm already doing that for our board. So it'd be easy to include you in on that, as well as I think I've already included you on headlines and updates. But
you did. Thank you very much. That was great.
All right. So I liked, since we're still on the updates part of this, I like how Kevin integrates things, in for good reason. I think if we're going to want to see some results on this white paint from a virtual aspect, we need to advertise it, or we need to put some outreach on it. So, initially when we say, hey, look, we need to add, a flyer for how to do the new NXT, as Josh mentioned, it's not a new system. So I would stray away from spending, the money to put that out there when it's something that we're probably going to automatically switch to here. I'd say at the rate that we're moving at, probably in the next few months. So, but what does make sense to me is that if we're wanting to get results on what we already have a resolution to change in our OARs from a white paint or a ticket link standpoint, let's a virtual white lining. Let's put those things in there. Maybe put something along the lines of those items that would benefit us in a type of flyer. Now I don't know. Maybe just not a disclosure, but maybe a statement, maybe an explanation in the flyer that might give an excavator a different point of view. That says, ticket link to a ticket is being discussed. It impacts the industry tremendously. The time spent needing to do locates is reduced by, I don't know how it would be worded, but, and then of course, we put in, the virtual white lining piece of it and how they could access, NXT to use those features and that functionality. So that might be a good approach. I think we'd be looking further out from January and February to see results on that, but because it'll take a while just to get that put together. But it's a good start to see if that will affect anything and if we start seeing a change with the virtual white line. I think inevitably we will see a reduction in the amount of length and time spent on a locate from a locator standpoint, because we're already seeing where they're actually putting their spots on the map rather than just calling in the whole property. So now we do still have the directional AI issue, but that's a different thing.
And that's been helpful and probably something that could be highlighted to benefit the industry's efforts. So the better notification information that we get, we all benefit from. So yeah, it's there. It's just how do you is it a priority to take the stage and say this is how we want you to use our new product, and maybe not use Michelle's or my language because we're a little bit harsh, but I'm sure Josh could figure it out because that's
it's his job. Yeah. And I think there's something there. Whether we wait on, whether we use it as a metric or not, I think it's important. If we're passionate about it here in committee, we can't get it in rule immediately. I think that's great, Kevin. I think it's awesome. It's a great point to make. And I think we should look at that. What would it look like?
Yeah, I just off the top of my head, Josh, the thing that comes to mind is that there was a white paper provided by CGA, and I believe there was a one call concepts participated in providing information on that white paper, and really highlighted the benefits of utilizing the system. And so I can try to dig that up if it's not ringing a familiarity bell, but I thought it was a interesting piece where One Call Concepts is had this in place in other states, and we are late adopters of it. But I did ask them, well, do you have data to, what is your justification or data to mark effectiveness? And it was a bit anecdotal. They didn't have much, but they seemed to believe that it was working. And what was really interesting was that the One Call Center board was taking ownership of getting that information out. So it wasn't a redirect to OCC. It was that as an option, but also it was highlighted on the OUNC or on that board's website. And so I could try to track that down again, see if it might be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to see that, and it has been front and center on our website as well. So we're going to leave that up there too. So it's got a lot of good resources on there.
Okay. So let's see here. So I think let's try to take a stab at that. Let's try to take a stab at maybe a 3-tier flyer, something like that can go out, Josh, and maybe Kitty work with Josh on that. Let's get the layout of it, and then we'll start getting some content in. Maybe our next OAR meeting we can start adding it. So I'd implore everybody to come with some good ideas to put on there, and we can make a decision, and we can roll that out very quickly. So again, we did cover the we talked about the paint remediation. So okay, we've covered length and then white paint. So there's no real. Okay, so moving on, unless someone has anything else.
Hey, Micah, this is Mitch. Just to add on top of all the training that we're trying to do and putting out with the new system. Actually, it's not a new system. With the updated system, one of the things, with the virtual white line, I think it's a work in progress. So as far as many people we get on board with NXT, this we're gonna come with. I know we're talking about virtual white line, because we're gonna make sure even the locators are ready for this. I mean, how is your locators? Are they ready starting tomorrow to look into their devices? They're gonna go to a job site and not gonna see a white paint on the ground. Are they able to see the virtual white line? So I'm thinking it's a work in progress, slowly. And once we reach out to a little bit of higher usage, then we can approach this. We can start the process right now, but we can approach it more aggressive later on.
Yeah, I think let's add that too, Josh. Mitch just kind of thought. So if we're approaching the excavators from how to use it, let's approach the locators as well. Of course, your larger operators and more integrated, contractors, we're gonna have that readily available. But some of the smaller municipalities and this and that, they may not. So having that education for them on that as well will be beneficial.
I have one other quick thought. If the concern is that as someone's submitting a ticket, that they run up against this new thing and they're confused or they don't like what they see, is there a way to have a link or a help button on there that says, if you don't understand this, here are some resources, and it kicks it to that OR.nxt site, or even connects with you or me, Scott, where they could ask questions. So if they do run up against a wall or they're frustrated with that process, which I think is not common, but is there a way to have something on there that kind of redirects them, gives them an off-ramp to a help resource? You're muted.
Do you have
Sorry, there is a help and support button on that page already, where you can go and get that.
Okay.
Some information. I don't know.
You're on mute, Scott.
Still on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, so if you click on that help button, it takes you to a lot of different options to look at for like the NXT manuals and all that stuff. So videos, all the videos, plus more videos than you kind of need. So there is that button. It's right there on the left side of that screen. Once you go to just your normal login screen, it's there.
I'll take a look at that. Is there a number to call if they want to talk with someone? Which I know is dangerous sometimes, but
Oh, that would be very dangerous. I think
811. You can call 811 and there's a help tree. So it would get to our help desk and they would direct you to our IT specialist.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you don't want that, Josh.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, Don said it's been like, you could count them on two hands, the number of one-on-ones he's had to do on this. So.
Yeah, and we have 2 full-time ITIC specialists that just do that stuff. So anyone who needs training is welcome to reach out to them. And even Michelle, if you want, we would send one of them down to do a training for your next local UCC meeting if you'd like. So.
All right.
Sounds good. Thanks.
So again, old business, large area, that's going to be something that that will get changed. We leave it on there just to keep it fresh on the mind that it will need to be changed, that definition, once we go to revise. So we might even be able to take that off there. I'll look into that. The ORS and the OAR definition for underground facility, that is still an old business. And what do I have for that in particular? Right, so we've got, okay. Yeah, we were going to look into that. I remember my last note was to ask Josh to see what our process would be from us, to present a bill to have that changed. I think that's the last I have on that. From an underground facility standpoint, I mean, I remember us going over it. It was brought to us to committee. It identified an anchor as an underground facility, and that's an unlocatable structure. It's more or less an above ground support structure. It's similar to an underground foundation to any structure. So, but it identifies it as an underground facility. Can't change an ORS, or we can't change an OAR because it is in the it's a statute. So
I think something to consider on what was done. I remember people wanting or an effort to change the definition of excavation, and that shares another ORS link. And it was recommended that you don't necessarily have to change the definition of the ORS because that's formulating, the board in itself, but you could, whatever the ask or pain point is about the term being used in the rules, it can be expanded on. So that's what happened to sidewalk, road, and ditch maintenance, where it was referenced in the both ORS and OAR, but the board felt it was necessary to provide clarity on those 3 areas of the rule, and they did so. So without opening up the law, which provides an opportunity for a lot of changes to be made that don't necessarily have complete control over, it would be advisable to look at what is the pain point about the anchor. Could it be located, or specified to be located or differently within the rule? What is it that is the pain point about an anchor? You say it's unlocatable, but does the excavator still deserve that information that, hey, there's a unlocatable anchor, in the area? And that is my first crack at this topic.
right. If it's an underground facility, I mean, we have it as defined as an underground facility, you have to either locate it or, like you mentioned, identify it as either abandoned or out of service.
Well, we could also look at it at the same way as a culvert. right? That has, you know, a definable above ground demarcation where you can determine where it goes. And that's not in the, and so what I'm saying is there's room in the OARs that we can address the pain point about what it is that needs to be done with those underground facilities.
Right, but they don't have culvert in here as one of them, Kevin. And then my only, I agree with you. I think that'd be great, but I don't want. And if that's something that we can do, Josh, let's look into it. But I think if somewhere were to get into litigation with that, if they hit it and they're trying to use the statute as, you know, their backer, and the justification is
that would get tossed out by any, you know, legal argument, because the ORS specifically to set up the OUNC.
Okay.
And define certain liabilities if you're not a member of the OUNC. The OARs are the rules that actually you know, that are the do's and don'ts of locating, excavating, and so forth. And that's where the sandbox of litigation is. So very rarely do people use the ORS to make an argument that someone is liable for something when it's clear that the ORS was designed to set up the OUNC.
Okay. That's good information, Kevin. We'll make sure that when we put that in the OAR that it says Kevin Hennessy said. We'll put your name right there.
No. But I do remember. I remember in the standards manual, you know, we were missing a point that the rules are, these definitions are to an effect of the, you know, chapter 952. So it's not me, but there is this separation between sandbox, between the ORS, what the function of the ORS is and what the OARs are. And that's not me, that's DOJ and
okay.
And the legislative process, really.
Well, that's, you know, that's one of the benefits of having you here, Kevin. So appreciate it. That kind of gets us, gets me, I put some notes in here to have us travel down a different path there with that. So we'll go ahead and I think if the committee's okay with that, I guess we can move it to an active item. If we feel that it's necessary, I think we had enough information that it's warranted to look into expanding on, adding further clarification. Is anybody opposed to that? Just had it up. Yeah, it's yeah, so lines, wires, manholes, not limited to pipes, sewers, conduits, cables, valves, lines, wires, manholes, attachments, and those parts. So it says, yeah, attachments and those parts of poles or anchors that are underground. And so those technically are underground. And so that does make sense, Kevin. It makes a lot of sense. It's identifying what underground facilities can be, but we expand on what the rule, expand on the rule in terms of clarifying what we're responsible for locating and protecting.
Yeah, as soon, I mean, just a warning, as soon as you tell me that it's unlocatable, doesn't mean that it shouldn't be identified for an excavator as a facility. You just put a UL, and then you know, it is what it is. However the facility operator wants to protect that facility, then, you know, that is it's within their purview. So
we'll move it to
and I've never really, I've never seen an enforcement where it was related to an anchor. So
Well, I mean, there's
I
a lot of
have
stuff.
I have seen Northwest Natural Pipe like get drilled right through a telephone pole using HDD. But that so that was
Wow.
an oddity.
And there's a lot of stuff that goes on, outside of what you see too and what we see, Kevin. I think that one was particularly brought because it did make it to the litigation stage. So, or was about to. So, okay, so we'll move that. We'll move it. We'll talk about it, and then we'll see how we would want to word that, and then of course bring it to the board with our recommendation on the verbiage, and then just have that as an expansion on the definition for the OR, for the OAR. We'll move it to an action item there, or committee item. Okay. So we do have some new business to talk about. It wasn't originally on the agenda, but the emergency ticket that I know that's always been a hot topic, and I could definitely put my locator hat on here and go to town. But does anybody have any thoughts on emergency tickets, how they're being used, if they're being reused wrongly? Anything there on that?
So that sort of came from me also. Josh, I actually sent it to Josh because I ran the last 3 months because we got called on installing a sprinkler system, 3 tickets. And they're all emergency. And I'll give the call center huge kudos. I mean, they read the phrase inside the book on, I think it's page 43, that says what constitutes an emergency, but they still place an emergency, which still forces everybody to have to respond. So I just still don't, I mean, I know we can't declare what an emergency is or not, but even one was like putting fence up for the dog. That's not a matter of life or death. There was, they're just, for the majority, yes, I will say they're using it the appropriate way, but I just still feel that if in true fact we hold to what that statement says, it should not be an emergency. It should be get out there as soon as you can type thing, but it's not an emergency. So then one of these guys don't have to drive down from Gilchrist, which is 2.5 hours to get down here. I mean, if you can't eliminate it in other ways, to get back down to say Malin, the other end of the county, and there's only one person here doing that. It just, I don't know. I just don't understand how we can be so vague on that one when it's pretty much written, and yet we still allow it.
Yeah, and there's 2 aspects of that too. I think with my locators, they're calling on any and every emergency, unless there's damage to a utility. I mean, they're calling on it and finding out where it can fit into the route.
Right.
But the other side of it is what you're saying is that they're calling these in, and I've seen some that were pushed out. They called in on Friday, and they don't need it till Tuesday, and it's like where do we miss that 2 business day on that one at? So I completely understand that, and the resources end of it. And again, we have to consider what resources we have, and we have to market. We have to mark everything that comes through, and
exactly.
And so but here's my other question. This is a question I want to pose to the committee here. As you're saying this, Michelle, and as you had mentioned earlier, when we talk about, well, you might not have mentioned it, but we were talking about the paint remediation. Is that within the purview of the call center to say who's responsible for removing the paint? I mean, really, when you think about what we're chartered to do and what the mission is of the board is to protect the facilities and the public, and run a state-of-the-art call center that everyone can call tickets in. So that's our mission. But where's the separation from that, and then who's responsible for the paint that we're requiring someone to put down? Also, where's the separation in what we define as an emergency ticket versus what the operator's responsibility is in terms of how they interpret what's an emergency? So what I mean is that if it's not truly an emergency, or do they need to respond within a reasonable amount of time, which is in rule? Since we can't define, we're going to define what it is, but since we can't make the call, and since it's we can't say, hey, look, we're going to put a law here and we're going to put teeth to it. And this is the only type of emergency you can call in. We can even move to the direction of, if it is an emergency ticket, you have to call that in verbally. I know that there's some costs associated with that, but that would be, the other side of the coin. That would be the debt that would need to be paid on the operator's end if they were to agree to that. So,
Well, my approach is, Mike, is I'm having them fill out the new 811. I can't remember the exact name of it, Kevin, if you could help me, but where we can report individuals.
Process?
Yeah, the complaint process. Thank you so much. So we're submitting them to that, because since we can't do anything through the one call center, that's what I've advised the people here, is just, turn them in, and then maybe we can educate them that way. We've tried to educate them, we've talked to them, and then they continue to do it. The one we see more than anything here is bids. So somebody wants to put a bid on, let's say, a new sewer system, right? They'll throw in a locate and call it in as an emergency. It's not a sewer locate to make a repair. It's simply for a bid purpose. And we, and those are hard to define. I get that, but those are the ones that we're sending in through the complaint service. But,
okay.
it's, but those are probably what we see more than anything, whether it's usually fencing, sewers. Seems like there's one other one, but they're doing a bid, and the bid becomes an emergency, and it's not.
Right. So Kevin, can you speak to that as far as the process of complaints? Would, and of course you would look to this rule as the, when a complaint comes to you.
Yeah. So for these one-offs, which it sounds like they are, and it usually takes one or two complaint investigations to set the area straight on behavior change, but it would be I believe it would be a failure to give proper notice to the one call center. So whether that would be 5-0 or if it's related to the specific, we try to address the most specific rule that would change behavior. So in that case, if you're not giving proper notice, then we would cite them for a failure to give proper notification. That would be my recommendation, as opposed to directing the one call center to make those finite judgments of the severity of what the issue is. I just can't imagine that the OCC would be wanting to take on that liability, or really making it harder for an excavator that needs to give notification. If you make it harder for them in the case of an emergency, then they might be weighing the risk and not giving notification at all. So I haven't seen those complaints yet, Michelle, but happy to take a look at them and process them.
Well, we just discovered, or really, everybody sort of brought it to the table just this week, and we're asking for advice what to do. So
Okay.
I don't think, and so what I had done with Josh was just sort of gave him some examples of what we were seeing, just as an FYI, nothing more. And what were other areas doing. So anyway, it's my hope that they will start doing that, but they were just looking for another avenue in order to, because they know they still have to respond. And we know that, nobody wants the liability to make that decision.
Yeah. And as I said in maybe an email or something to this group, it's worth listening to the exchange between the one call technician and the excavator. Was all the information collected in the appropriate way, per OUNC standards? But more importantly, the parts of the rule was did the notification include location and all the appropriate information, and that's what we're looking at to make the judgment of it really comes down to property loss, right? If you look at the definition of excavation, so or excuse me, emergency. Yeah, it's a finite one. I think we have enforced one like that before, but it's few and far between.
I think you know, we've streamlined this process in for good measure with the complaint process, and there's just one avenue to take, and I think we're going to see that being used a little bit more, to quite frankly. So when I look at this, Michelle, I'd say that's the avenue to take, and let's start exercising it, and then see what direction, you know, the PUC, you know, takes with it. And they have a rule here. They have a definition of what an emergency is. They've got to show proof of if it is an emergency or not. If they can't, then they're going to get a, you know, they can be cited. But we do have a rule for it. And I think we use that. It's similar to our ticket length. We don't have a rule for ticket length, so really can't do anything there. And that's what we're hoping to achieve at some point. If someone's calling over more footage than what they're saying on the ticket or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I think if we got a rule, let's exercise it.
And just Micah, just if I could, I got 3 other questions they had from our meeting this week, and this is more towards Scott, if I might. It's questions about the call center. They were wondering if the call center advises of holidays, because that does alter the length of the ticket.
Oh yeah, on Facebook.
Pardon me?
I'm sorry. Yeah. Scott, go ahead.
We do if we talk to them. If someone's calling and we have that opportunity, we will advise that.
Okay, because from what I understand, 2 of them that did call in over Veterans Day recently, they didn't know about it, so they were just curious, and they were actual phone calls into the call center. But I just told them, you know, because I always send out information from here, just always when I do my weekly schedule, to say, hey, this holiday is coming up, be advised your locate tickets are going to slide. So anyway, I told them I wasn't sure. They say that customers are calling with more details and information, but it's not making it to the tickets.
Okay, I can't. I could look into that. If you have ticket numbers, I'm happy to dive in.
And I granted, I do ask that. It's like when we were kids, right? Everybody's got it, but who's everybody? I try to do that. So anyway, these are just things that came up at the meeting, and this was just a timely meeting that I could bring it to the forum. So sure. Anyway, and then the other one was over the rollout of ITIC. So anyway, that was it.
One thing we do at the end of every ticket is we verify every word that we write in the locate ticket. So as you go through, and anyone's welcome to come in and listen to tickets. We highly recommend that, just to kind of really get a feel for what we're doing. But as they're typing, they come back and they say, okay, so I understand that you are digging on the north side of 1 Street from between Main and, is that right? And then we'll get verification from that. So at the end of that ticket, we've essentially reread them, everything that we've told them.
Okay, and including the notes. That's the piece that's missing. So they'll give, okay. I just want to, okay, perfect. All right, I will put that in my notes back to them.
Yeah, so if they hear something if they don't hear something that they think is important, by all means, let them know. And in that moment, they can just add it to that notes.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much.
But even better than that, have them go on NXT and do that online.
Yeah, it doesn't work for everybody. Sorry.
Yeah, I know, we're trying.
Yep. So, okay, thank you.
All right. So moving on, I don't have anything else. Does anyone have anything else for new business? Anything they wanted to add? I'll leave it open. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll move underground facility as an action item. So it will be number 2, or I'm sorry, number 3 here on our next agenda. That will probably be in January. And I do have a few notes on my end, as always. I hope everybody that is going to look through some things. I don't want to waste anyone's time here on these meetings. We need to move forward with things. I think we've done a good job of that in the past. This year's been tough, especially with the workloads that everybody and the extra duties everybody's picked up. I know that I have, and it's been tough to kind of juggle everything. So I appreciate everybody joining though again, and I know we don't have a quorum. So do we have anything for the good of the order? Okay, well, I wish everyone the very best during Thanksgiving and the holiday. Be safe, and appreciate you joining. Thank you.
Thanks, Micah. Thanks, everyone.
That's the gift that keeps on giving. All right. We'll talk to everybody later.